Shogun is one of the most impressive TV shows I've seen in a long time. Many others seem to agree, as the show's apparently been a big hit. The acting, the script, the cinematography, the music. It's a beautiful schmear. I can't say I watch a lot of modern television. The comedies aren't funny, and the dramas take themselves far too seriously. But this is one example of a pretty darn good TV show. Except for the ending. To my viewing eyes, and the brain behind them, or at least the thing behind them, there were a number of issues with Shogun's ending from a storytelling and viewer satisfaction standpoint. I was left, after the final few episodes, with a definite feeling of, huh? What now? Let me begin by saying I haven't read the book, and I haven't seen the original miniseries from 1980, so some of what I'm going to be talking about may be traced back to one of those two pieces of source material. But as with any adaptation, that's no excuse. As the prostitute said to the puttier, a hole is a hole is a hole. Let's start with the biggest issue, which is the supposed superintelligence and super cunning of one Yoshii Toranaga. This is, in essence, his story, how he came to be the titular shogun. Mariko says,
"My lord is famous for his trickery."
And everyone everywhere throughout the story is well aware that Toranaga is sneaky, sly, unpredictable, and shrewd. He's Bart Simpson, all grown up and living in Japan in 1600. The show builds him up as a consummate schemer and manipulator. Yet let's have a look at how he goes about extricating himself from the seemingly hopeless complications in which he finds himself toward the end of the story. He's facing a death sentence if he returns to Osaka as the council has demanded. If he does not return, there'll be a war between the regents of the council and Toranaga's forces, a war Toranaga knows he cannot win. So what does he do? First, he pretends to surrender over the objections of pretty much everyone around him, all of whom would rather fight and die than give up. Then, to provide this surrender the patina of legitimacy, he stage manages an argument with his oldest friend and advisor, Hiromatsu, after which Hiromatsu claims he must commit seppuku, as he cannot go along with Toranaga's plan to surrender to the council. This he does, or starts to do, when his second steps in and chops off his head. I had no idea this was how seppuku worked. Why not just skip the stomach knifing and have the guy chop off your head? It's not as if anybody would have survived having their head chopped off if only they hadn't stuck a knife in their stomach at the same time. At any rate, Toranaga later tells Mariko this stage-managed seppuku was so that the council in Osaka would fully believe in his surrender. Okay. Next, in a scheme codenamed Crimson Sky, Toranaga sends Mariko back to Osaka, along with John Blackthorne, where she tells Ishido, Toranaga's nemesis, that she's come to retrieve Toranaga's wife, consort, and newborn child. They'll all be leaving in the morning. Thank you very much. This is to force Ishido's hand. He's been holding various nobles of various clans hostage, and if he prevents Mariko from leaving, he'll be admitting that they are in fact hostages and not merely guests. In modern times, this is called gaslighting, but in medieval Japan, it was called brazier lighting. While in Osaka, Mariko also visits Ochiba, the mother of the late ruler's heir, and rightful, insofar as anyone ever is rightful, monarch of Japan. Ochiba is recently engaged, in a purely political power play, to Ishido. The visit between Mariko and Ochiba goes about as expected, with both giving deep, soulful looks, but neither giving any ground. In modern times, this is called divorce court. Ishido having prevented Mariko et al. From leaving Osaka, Mariko avows that since she's failed her lord's instructions, she too, like everyone else in this story, must commit seppuku. She comes within a blade's breadth of doing so before, in the manner of every tale ever written, Ishido interrupts and says she and the others are now free to go. However, that night ninjas attack, and Mariko is killed when they blow open the door of the storage hut in which Mariko, Yabushige, and Blackthorn are hiding. Mariko sure looks good, if dead, after this having happened to her. Japanese skincare. We'll come back to this later, for it makes zero sense, but for now, let's take stock. After Mariko's death, Ishido does allow his quote-unquote hostages to leave Osaka. Blackthorn is taken to what he presumes will be his death, but no, a deal has been worked out to save his life. He is returned to Ajiro and his gay lover, Toranaga. Yabushige, though, was seen allowing the ninjas into Mariko and Blackthorn's quarters and is commanded by Toranaga to, you got it, commit seppuku. People talk about Japan's declining birth rate nowadays, but how'd they ever get out of the 17th century? When Commodore Perry showed up, all he should have found was a bunch of skeletons with their skulls a few feet away. During Yabushige and Toranaga's final conversation, Toranaga reveals the future. He will meet his enemies at Sekigahara, but there will be no battle. Why? Because Ochiba has sent him a letter, written after Mariko's death, saying that she will not allow her son's armies to join in the battle. This will give Toranaga his final victory and make him, as the title tells us, Shogun of Japan.
What's happening?
I do not know.
Talk about a deus ex machina. This is a double dog deus ex machina. The only, and I do mean only, reason Toranaga gives why he'll win this battle over Ishida is because of Ochiba's actions. It's not thanks to the other regents switching sides or failing to show up for the battle. It's solely, only, and completely thanks to Ochiba. So, how exactly is this evidence of Toranaga's genius? He knew Ochiba would change her mind? That's ridiculous. He might have thought she might change her mind, but his entire plan, at least how things turn out, was to hope she'd change her mind? This is not a master schemer and manipulator. This is Forrest Gump, pinballing through history without a clue, and somehow coming up lucky 7 every time. A metaphor that's almost as mixed up as the end of this story. I mean, what the hell did Hiromatsu's death have to do with this? What the hell did Toranaga's surrender have to do with this? You could say that sending Mariko to Osaka, the Crimson Sky plan, was set in motion to try to convince Ochiba to have a change of heart. But Mariko's behavior in Osaka is all about following through on the plan to get the hostages out, not on changing Ochiba's mind. The one might have some bearing on the other, but this is an awfully slender thread on which to pin your hopes, if you're Toranaga. It doesn't speak so much to a genius for scheming as a genius for wishing and hoping and thinking and praying. What impact does all of Toranaga's masterminding have on events in the end? Ochiba's secret letter? Well, sure, but if you're saying that was Toranaga's plan all along, I'd say you're an idiot and so is he. It's like saying that double switch you pulled in the 5th inning was what led to the opposing pitcher walking in the winning run in the bottom of the 9th. There may be some connection between the two events, but to claim you knew it would turn out that way all along, that you planned it that way all along, is just ludicrous. Now, one instance of what I thought might be an example of Toranaga pulling levers in the background was the death of his son, Nagakado. Once I heard that Nagakado's death entitled Toranaga to 49 days of mourning, I thought, oh, he faked Nagakado's death to buy himself some time. Admittedly, Nagakado's death was presented as what the French call a fait accompli. In other words, wasn't much doubt he really was dead. But for a man who allowed his oldest and best friend to kill himself to buttress the pretense of a surrender, faking his own son's death would have been a layup. But no, Nagakado was just being Nagakado. Poor kid. He deserved better. Like, how does this scene not end with a kiss? A couple of other things that chapped my hide about the final few episodes. First, Blackthorn really only has 3 purposes in the story. 1, to distract Ishido's men during Toranaga's escape from Osaka. 2, to show Toranaga's men how to use the cannon from his ship, and 3, to save Toranaga after the earthquake. Oh, and 4, to show Mariko that once you go white, you will spend the night. The third of these is actually debatable. There were lots of people involved in Toranaga's rescue, and Blackthorn may not even have been necessary to dig Toranaga out of the closet. Ground. Point is, if you remove Blackthorn from the story after episode 5, then, like the presidency of Martin Van Buren, nothing much changes. He has zero effect on Toranaga's decision to fake the surrender, zero effect on Crimson Sky. Mariko's return to Osaka would have played out no differently if he hadn't gone along, other than that she and he got to share one more night of passion. Even his ship's cannon are never put to use, except to do away with Ishido's henchman Jozen. Blackthorn's one other impact in the tale is that, through his ignorance of Japanese customs and culture, he gets the poor old gardener Wijiro to, say it with me, commit seppuku. Blackthorn's role can be boiled down to the same thing an ex once said about me after our first night together: much smoke, little fire. Blackthorn does serve, as Toranaga tells Yobashuge during their final conversation, as a distraction to Toranaga's enemies. But the way Toranaga protects him and lavishes abundance upon him,
He has made you Hatamoto, which is a very great honor.
even before he saves Toranaga's life, makes me think maybe they were gay lovers? That final conversation between Toranaga and Yobashuge does contain one of the worst lines in the series, when Toranaga tells Yobashuge he kept Blackthorn around because he makes me laugh. Excuse me? He makes you laugh? Is he a clown? Does he amuse you? First of all, John Blackthorn is nobody's idea of a comedian. Second, you're nobody's idea of a good audience. Third, this series does share the common failing of modern dramas. It takes itself incredibly seriously. There are lighter moments here and there, but they have more to do with irony than slapstick. If Blackthorn was spending his post-coital moments with Toranaga ripping off one knee slapper after another, it's never shown in the series. Next, the inexplicable decision by the people in charge to begin the final episode, and occasionally return to during the episode, Blackthorn in what is presumably 40 or so years in the future, bedridden, approaching death, with Mariko's crossed necklace still in his hand. But in the episode, we see Blackthorn drop Mariko's necklace into the waters off Ojiro, symbolically letting go of her. So something is very much askew here, and it truly does seem a bizarre choice by the creators, because the flash forward is about as unnecessary and unrevealing as a flash forward can be. It tells us next to nothing, it changes next to nothing. It's as if someone had the thought, hey, let's include a flash forward, as if that in and of itself was evidence of storytelling virtuosity. The name of the final episode is A Dream of a Dream, which might be telling us that everything in the episode is not real, or that the flash forward is not real. But what the heck would be the reason for either of those at this late date? Nothing else about the show has indicated this sort of unreliable narration as at work, so unless you want to establish that the entire show is a dream Blackthorn had as he slowly starved to death aboard the Erasmus, which turns the whole thing into a Lost-like exercise in pointlessness, then why have the flash forward at all? It's like putting pickles on a pizza, or hot sauce on your ice cream, or ketchup on your sushi, or a flash forward in your show. It's exactly like that. Lastly, the shinobi or ninja attack on Mariko in episode 9. Yobashuge in episode 10 says to Ishido that Mariko was only supposed to be wounded, not killed, in the attack. I'll say it again. What now? She was only supposed to be wounded? In an attack like that, how can you ensure that anybody is only wounded? It's like asking John Wilkes Booth to put a shot in Lincoln's shoulder instead of his head. You're taking a hell of a risk that something will go horribly wrong. Lincoln could turn his head at the last minute, or the bullet wound to the shoulder could get infected, or hell, the shot might go through his shoulder, hit his knee, and then bounce up and hit Governor Connolly sitting in front of him.
Back and to the left. Back and to the left.
Which leads to the even bigger issue, which is, why stage this attack at all at this point in the story? We know Ishido is behind it, but Ishido just backed down and gave Mariko permission to leave Osaka. Everybody will know that either A, he staged the attack to get back at Mariko and Toranaga, or B, security in his own city is so atrocious as to allow an attack like this to happen, which cannot reflect well on him as the guy vying to be Japan's future leader. Either way, it ain't a good look. I haven't delved much in this episode into how to fix all these problems, except for the possibility of Nagakato's death being faked. Usually I do try to offer solutions, but in this case, Toranaga's lack of a genuine plan is so all-pervasive that really you'd have to rewrite the entire show to provide him with one, and at the same time, provide Blackthorn with something substantive to do in episodes 6 through 10. You can dump the flash forward and you lose literally nothing, so that's easy enough. And maybe the attack on Mariko wasn't the work of Ishido, but, for instance, Yobashuge on his own, rather than at Ishido's bidding. And with that, you can also do away with Yobashuge's comment that Mariko was only meant to be wounded. Yobashuge was, in his fumbling way, trying to get back into Ishido's good graces. Or, if you want to really get nuts, then Toranaga himself was behind it. This was the true purpose and significance of Crimson Sky. Mariko was meant to sacrifice herself to make Ishido look bad and force him to release the hostages. We were told over and over again how Machiavellian Toranaga could be, and this would have demonstrated that a lot more compellingly than a frickin' letter from frickin' Ochiba. After the first 8 episodes, I was expecting Shogun to barrel toward an exciting and unexpected climax, which in some respects is what happened. But I also had the outrageous hope, based on the writing of the series up to that point, that the climax would astound and delight with its intricacy, and, as with all great endings, fittingness. Obviously, this didn't happen. The ending was a confused mess that ended up with Toranaga winning, from the available evidence, simply because Toranaga was meant to win in the end. He didn't earn it, he didn't manufacture it, it fell into his hands like manna from heaven. Or a letter from Ochiba. If there's a season 2, I'll watch it, if only to see where they go when they're no longer adapting source material. I won't be expecting much beyond the trappings of a great show. Acting, scenery, cinematography, music. And lots of seppuku. What I won't be expecting is a story that comes together logically, inevitably,
I had to go see about a girl.
and skillfully at the end.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner.
Still, I will watch. After all, who could pass up the opportunity to hear Richard Burton speak from beyond the grave?
I fought too long, too hard to get here. I won't succumb to this madness. I won't. I can't.
As head of the Church of England, and as your spiritual father, I forbid you to pass judgment on me.
Thanks for watching, and as we say here in China, Li Hai.